So, yeah, whenever you're ready, let's go ahead and let's start setting up for some steep turns real quick.
Alrighty. Alright, we're on the right tank, 19 gallons. Sit there. I'm gonna wait till I get out of here.
No, you're good.
Alright, do a couple clearing turns. Alright, so the purpose of steep turns, we're basically experiencing the loss of vertical lift with the gain in horizontal lift, and basically being able to maneuver the plane at a high angle of bank. So we're getting set up here, got our altitude bugged. Visual reference point, I'll go ahead and use the tip of the lake. At about 100 knots, about 2,300 RPM. Get our pre-maneuver checklist, going to give me a couple swipes of trim. And we're looking good as far as traffic goes. Rolling into it. Adding a bump of power, about 2,500. Slowly coming up on my point. Rolling out, taking out a little bit of power. Rolling into the next side. Watching my altitude and airspeed, making small adjustments if needed. And then rolling out on my heading. There's our wake.
Cool.
Taking out the trim, going back to cruise.
Okay. Let's do Chandelles.
Alrighty, so Chandelles, purpose of it is a performance climbing 180 turn. So the main thing that we're going to be focused on is we're keeping the same amount of bank during the first half of the turn, while we're increasing the pitch slowly, about like 1 to 2 degrees. We should get to max pitch about our 45 degree point. So that'll be on our 90 point off of the start of the maneuver. And then from there, the second half of the maneuver is basically slowly taking out the bank while keeping the same level of pitch. So then that way you are kind of close to stalling speed at the end of the 180 turn, and you're able to kind of maximize your gain in altitude, and then you're slowly taking out the pitch. Careful not to, lose any altitude that you just gained. So we could use this in like mountainous terrain areas and things like that.
Okay.
So we got heading bugged. Here we'll go to 6 for starting altitude. And 90 degree point. I'm going to use the finger of the lake right there.
Okay.
Alright, we're looking good. So I'm banking over to 30 degrees. There's 30, full power. And I'm slowly starting to pitch up, while maintaining the bank. There's my 90 degree point, finger of the lake, and then slowly taking out the bank as I keep the pitch the same, right about like that 18 degrees. Coming up on 180. So there's 180, so I'm holding it, and then I'm slowly going to leave some of that back pressure. Careful not to lose any altitude. Watching the VSI, making sure it's still positive. 76.
Good.
Cover to straight and level, and then we'll go ahead and do it to the other side.
You're okay on the second one.
Okay.
Yeah, you just have to do the first one anyway. A couple of things there is, yeah, so you're trying to go make it to just above stall speed is kind of how it's worded, right?
Yeah.
And then you have with minimal altitude loss, so AKA just don't lose any altitude, right?
Yeah.
Try to keep the VSI on the positive side. Okay, we can go south and do a lazy 8.
All right. I'm going to wait for, or maybe I'll do a...
Yeah, you'll be coming in behind him by the time you're getting anywhere close.
Yeah. All right, so the purpose of Lazy 8, basically what we're doing is we are kind of working on our finesse skills of being able to fly the plane. So with minimal input, allowing the plane to kind of fly itself, and we're doing these 180-degree turns while also kind of having, or basically working on our skills for climbing and descent in those turns with minimal input and having it be kind of nice and smooth. And so, yeah, minimal input, that's where kind of that lazy 8 comes from, kind of being a little nonchalant with it. So we're going to start out, we have our heading bugs, 180. We got our starting altitude and kind of looking about maybe like 2380, 105 knots.
Okay. How much altitude you usually gain in this maneuver?
Usually about like 200.
Yeah, so sometimes 200-300, right?
Yeah.
It's going to put you pretty close to that Bravo shelf, right?
True. Should we get out of it?
Probably not worth getting that close, or you could just descend real quick.
All right, yeah, we'll just do that.
Just go down to 35.
Cool.
Cool, that'll work.
All right, so 34. And then we need to pick our reference point. So we need a 45. So for 45, I'll use the end of the bridge right there. 90, I'll use got that Lake Takawani in the background there.
Okay.
So I got that. And then 135, I'll use the 2 or 3 ponds kind of behind us.
Okay.
Actually, let's call it again 33. All right, it's about 105, 3,300. Heading bugged. So I'm going to slightly start to bank and pitch up about 1 degree a second. And then there's my 45. So I'm starting to come back down and slice through my 90 right there.
Good.
Bringing it down just about like 5-7 degrees below the horizon. Then I'm watching my altitude and my airspeed as I come around on the 180 degree heading. And then over to the right, same thing. Slowly adding bank and pitch. Water clear. There's my 135. Starting to let it come down. I'm slicing through my 90 here.
Nice.
Falling out on the 180.
That was a good set of them. Looks good.
Yeah, it was pretty dang good.
Yeah, so just a constant showing your left turning tendencies. Obviously that left one, you don't need as much help. It just kind of wants to go, but that right one, you need the right rotor. So it's a maneuver kind of with a constant changing pitch and bank throughout.
Yep.
And showing your left turning tendencies. So
yeah.
Wide range of air speeds, pitches, and banks all throughout.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's go out and let's get out from underneath the Bravo shelf and rather do a steep spiral.
Okay.
Yeah, so as we're climbing up, let's kind of talk me through what's going on with this steep spiral. What does this look like, or why?
Yeah. So steep spiral, basically what we're going to be doing is we're simulating like engine out, and you're basically kind of hovering over where you're going to be landing, so making emergency landing, emergency descent. So we're kind of mimicking like, hey, we're over in an airport, and we have an engine out, some kind of an emergency, and we need to make an emergency descent, so we're getting down quickly, we're staying over our point. And yeah, the way we're going to get set up for it, we're going to get set up in the upwind, so we'll need to do a 180. At some point, I'll get a little farther out here.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then we're pitching for 80, and then making sure to adjust our angle of bank depending on the winds, to make sure that we're kind of staying over our point, and then recovering at 1,500, but we got 500 fuel elevation, so we're looking at 2,000 we need to recover by.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll wait for a little bit to get out of here so we can whip it around, get set up in the upwind. Establishing the upwind. Going power idle. And then pitching for 80. Rolling over, I got my field that I'm picking. I'm watching my airspeed, so I'm getting a little low, so I'm going to pitch down a little bit.
So what is low? What's our standards on the airspeed?
Airspeed's plus minus 10.
And what's your target?
We're looking at 80.
Okay.
So yeah, between 70 and 90. Here we go, 360, so we'll give a little bump of power, 2,000 RPM. Clear the engine.
So how are we adjusting to stay over our point?
We're taking out bank with our lower ground speed, and as the ground speed increases, we'll kind of steepen up the bank.
Cool.
So yeah, we're about like 80 something. We're creeping up into the 90s, so I'm kind of slowly adding some bit more bank in while still pitching for 80. And then coming up on the second 360. Bump to 2,000.
So the first one took 900, the second one took 700. How could we make the...
Yeah, we'll go ahead and steepen up the bank.
Altitude? So what's the most we can bank?
40. 45.
60 on this one.
60.
Yeah.
Forgot about that one.
Yeah, if you need to lose less altitude, you just make it a tighter spiral and you won't cover as much ground and lose as much altitude as you go.
Yep. And then coming around on our third 360 and then recover.
Yeah, that last one only took 500. So 900, 700,
Yeah.
500.
Yep.
Cool. All right, let's go kind of towards Mesquite for a second.
Cool. All right, so 8's on pylons. Basically what we're going to be doing is, yeah, we're getting set up for, you're going to be picking 2 points, and you'll be pivoting around and making an 8, so 8's on pylons. And this whole thing is basically to, it's a pitching maneuver. So the whole time you're going to be keeping relatively the same angle of bank, and in order to keep the same distance away from the pylon that you pick, you'll be pitching up or pitching down. So like if you have it off the edge of your wing, you'll look at it. If it starts to get ahead of you, you'll go ahead and pitch down, and then if it's getting behind you, you'll go ahead and pitch back up. And we're just trying to keep that evenness by pitching. So pitching
so
maneuver.
Trying to keep it the same position on the relative to the tip of the wing, right?
Right.
Like if we had, everybody uses that analogy, like if you had a little gun on the end of it that
right.
it couldn't move, right? It was just pointed straight off the tip of the wing that you'd just keep shooting at whatever point you picked.
Yep.
This is how you do that.
Yeah. All right, and then about 2,300, 100 knots. So let's see. We got some good stuff over here to use. Doing that house in kind of the brown.
Okay.
Brown field. I'm looking good. I'm kind of right on it. Pitch down a little bit. It's starting to get away from me. Starting to come back, so I'm pitching up slightly.
Yeah, so getting in the upwind now, that slows your ground speed, so that's why that point is moving in front of your wing. And you can increase your ground speed by increasing your indicated, by pushing the nose down.
Yep.
That will help increase your ground speed, but it changes your pivotal altitude as you go around the point, right?
Right.
Like it depends on where you're at relative to where the wind's coming from, what your pivotal altitude will be. Maintain that line of sight off the glare shield.
Yeah. So I'm keeping an eye on our heading. We're coming up on our 270. So I'm going to roll out. Wait about 6 to 8 seconds. And I see what I'm going to use. Use this square dirt patch here. And the green next to those two ponds. So it's under the wing. Pitching down as it's getting away. Turning your cream back behind, so I'm starting to pitch up a bit. And then rolling out on my initial heading. And actually, I think we're right over here. Boom.
Sweet. Yeah, so if you do these correctly, then you should be able to just keep going, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so there's your point, whatever.
Yep.
But yeah, basically,
so then I'd roll back into it, yeah.
As that ground speed is decreasing, obviously obviously it'll be pushing the nose forward because that'll change your pivotal altitude to be lower. And then as that ground speed is increasing, that pivotal altitude will be higher because you'll be having to pitch up.
Right.
To keep that point directly off the tip of your
3.5 miles to east.
Directly off the tip of your wing there. All right. Cool. All right, cool. So that finishes up lesson 13.